Within the den, Daniel was surrounded by hungry lions, their shadows cast by the torches outside. Yet, something extraordinary happened. Instead of attacking him, the lions calmed down, as if an invisible force had controlled them. Daniel remained in prayer, and a celestial presence in the form of an angel appeared beside him, closing the mouths of the lions. The atmosphere of terror transformed into one of peace and reverence. The lions, known for their ferocity, became as docile as lambs in the presence of God's servant. Prepare yourself to learn the incredible story of Daniel, from his prophetic visions to his courage in the lion's den. Daniel's life is a journey of faith, miracles, and perseverance. Discover how he remained steadfast in his faith amid unimaginable challenges and what we can learn from his inspiring example. The hot desert wind whispered ancient secrets as Daniel walked the path of exile. The land of Judah, once his home, was now just a distant memory, a shadow in his mind. Daniel, a young man of noble lineage, was now in strange lands, far from the familiar hills and the temple where he learned to love and fear the Lord. During this time of desolation, Nebuchadnezzar, the powerful king, conquered Jerusalem. Among the captives, he chose young men of noble appearance and sharp intellect to serve in his palace. Daniel, along with his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, was taken to the grand city of Babylon, a vibrant and opulent metropolis, pulsing with life and culture. Upon arrival, they were renamed. Daniel became Belteshazzar, Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah became Abednego. These new names were a constant reminder that they were under the dominion of a foreign kingdom where the gods of Babylon were revered. Yet, even amidst the opulence and glory of the palace, Daniel never forgot his true God. Challenges began early. King Nebuchadnezzar decreed that the young captives should be fed the rich food of the palace and drink the royal wine. However, Daniel firmly decided not to defile himself with the king's delicacies, knowing that many of them were offered to pagan idols. He sought permission to follow a simple diet of vegetables and water, a request that met with resistance but also God's providential hand. Daniel approached the chief of the eunuchs, asking permission not to defile himself. "Please test your servants for 10 days," he said with confidence far beyond his years. "Give us only vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food and treat your servants according to what you see." The response was a mixture of doubt and curiosity. Reluctantly, but impressed by Daniel's determination, the chief agreed to the challenge. And so, for 10 days, Daniel and his friends ate only vegetables and drank water. At the end of the trial period, their faces showed no signs of weakness. On the contrary, they were healthier and more robust than any other young man in the palace. Daniel's faith and obedience did not go unnoticed. This small victory not only earned the trust of his superiors, but also set the stage for much greater challenges to come. As Daniel and his friends adjusted to life in the palace, a shadow moved over Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar, tormented by disturbing dreams, was about to summon all the wise men of the kingdom to unravel the mysteries of his night visions. However, it would be only a young captive with unshakable faith and God-given wisdom who would bring light to the darkness of the royal dream, marking the beginning of a journey that would redefine not only his life, but the fate of an entire empire. The nights in Babylon were a spectacle of shimmering stars reflected in the calm waters of the Euphrates River. Yet, even that serenity could not quell the restlessness of King Nebuchadnezzar. Haunted by disturbing dreams, the great monarch could barely sleep. He knew these dreams were not merely products of his imagination, but enigmatic messages crying out for interpretation. In his distress, he summoned all the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers of the kingdom. demanding that they not only interpret the dream, but also reveal the dream itself. The task was impossible, and the terrified wise men admitted their inability, knowing their lives were at risk. Nebuchadnezzar's fury grew, threatening all with imminent execution for their failure. It was in this atmosphere of fear and despair that Daniel, upon hearing of the situation, requested an audience with the king. With courage, he asked for time to seek God's answer, certain that the Lord would not abandon him. Daniel gathered his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and together they cried out to the God of heaven for mercy and wisdom. In the stillness of the night, the answer came to Daniel in a vision. He saw the king's dream clearly and understood its meaning. With a heart full of gratitude, Daniel praised God, acknowledging that only He reveals the deepest mysteries. At dawn, Daniel was brought before the mighty Nebuchadnezzar. With a calmness that contrasted with the tension in the air, he began to speak. "O king, the mystery you requested cannot be revealed by wise men, enchanters, magicians, or diviners, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come." Daniel described the dream in detail. A colossal statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron and clay. A stone, cut out without human hands, struck the statue's feet, shattering it completely. The stone grew and became a great mountain, filling the entire earth. Then, with remarkable wisdom, Daniel explained the interpretation. The head of gold represented Nebuchadnezzar and his Babylonian kingdom, followed by successive kingdoms that would be less grand until an eternal kingdom, established by God, would destroy all the previous kingdoms and last forever. The king, astonished and in awe, prostrated himself before Daniel, acknowledging the greatness of Daniel's God. He elevated Daniel to a position of great honor and authority, making him governor over the entire province of Babylon and chief of all the wise men of the kingdom. But as Daniel began to settle into his new position, a new plot was being woven in the shadows of the palace. Daniel's enemies, envious of his favor and power, began plotting his downfall. Envy and conspiracy would soon surface, once again testing Daniel's faith and integrity and involving fire and unshakable faith, where loyalty to God would be dramatically and unforgettable tested. As the heat of the day began to give way to the coolness of the evening, King Nebuchadnezzar's decree spread throughout the vast city of Babylon. A colossal golden statue had been erected on the plain of Dura, gleaming under the setting sun as a monument to the king's glory. The order was clear and unforgiving. At the sound of the royal instruments, everyone was to bow down and worship the statue. Any disobedience would be punished by death in the blazing furnace. To the gathered crowd, the statue represented not only the greatness of Nebuchadnezzar, but also the absolute power of Babylon. However, for three young Hebrews, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, now known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it was a symbol of idolatry that directly challenged their faith in the God of Israel. When the music began to play, the vast crowd kneeled as one, like a wave of forced reverence. Everyone except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Standing firm in their faith, they refused to bow down to the idol. Their disobedience did not go unnoticed, and soon it reached the ears of the king. Furious, Nebuchadnezzar commanded that the three be brought into his presence. The young men stood calm and resolute, knowing that their faith would be tested to the limit. "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden statue I have set up?" The king roared. "I will give you one more chance. If you bow down and worship the statue when you hear the music, very well. But if you do not, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace." And then, what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? With a courage that could only come from unshakable faith, the three responded, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up. Their bold response only inflamed the king's anger. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual and had the strongest soldiers in his army bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the flames. The fire was so intense that the soldiers who threw them into the furnace were consumed by the heat. But as the king and his courtiers watched, something extraordinary happened. In the midst of the flames, the 3 young men were not alone. A fourth figure, resembling a son of the gods, appeared beside them, walking freely in the fire, untouched by the flames. Nebuchadnezzar, astonished, rose from his throne and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. The young men stepped out of the furnace, unharmed and without even the smell of fire on their clothes. The miracle was evident to all, and the king acknowledged the supreme power of the God of Israel. This act of unshakable faith not only saved their lives, but also caused a change in the king's heart, leading him to recognize the greatness of their God. However, the peace for Daniel and his friends would not last long. In the vast Babylonian Empire, other challenges and conspiracies were brewing, preparing the stage for new trials and revelations where Daniel's faith and wisdom would once again be tested against the power of earthly kingdoms. The golden lights of dawn began to bathe the great city of Babylon, bringing with them the promise of a new day. However, within the opulent walls of the royal palace, King Nebuchadnezzar was once again tormented. He had been visited by another unsettling dream, one just as disturbing as the previous, but this time more personal, more urgent. The king summoned all the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers, demanding that they interpret his dream. But as before, they proved incapable of deciphering the enigma. In his growing frustration, Nebuchadnezzar remembered the man who had interpreted his first dream, Daniel, the young captive who was now one of the most respected governors of the kingdom. Daniel was called into the king's presence. Despite his elevated position, he approached with the same humility and confidence as before, knowing that true wisdom came not from him, but from God. With a gesture, Nebuchadnezzar led him to the throne and began recounting his dream. I was looking, the king began, and I saw a great tree in the middle of the earth. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shelter under it, and the birds of the air lived in its branches. From it, every creature was fed. Nebuchadnezzar's voice trembled slightly as he continued. In the visions I saw while lying in my bed, I looked, and there before me was a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, "Cut down the tree and trim off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it and the birds from its branches. But let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him." Nebuchadnezzar looked at Daniel, his eyes pleading for understanding. Daniel, with a heavy heart, realized the gravity of the message. He took a deep breath, feeling the divine presence guiding his words. "O king, the tree you saw, which grew large and strong, with its top touching the sky, visible to the whole earth. This tree is you, O king. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the heavens, and your dominion extends to the ends of the earth. But, O king, the decree of the Watcher is against you. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone he wishes. A heavy silence fell over the throne room. The revelation was terrifying, but there was hope in the continuation of the dream. The stump and roots left in the ground indicated that Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom would be restored when he acknowledged God's sovereignty. Nebuchadnezzar, though shaken, could not deny the clarity and authority of Daniel's words. The interpretation seemed like a warning, an opportunity for redemption. Yet, the events that would follow would be a severe test of the king's humility, leading him down a path of transformation that no one could have predicted. As Daniel left the king's presence, a new shadow was forming on the horizon. Palace intrigues and conspiracies began to bubble up in the shadows, and the trials Daniel and his friends would face in the coming days would test not only their faith, but also their ability to remain faithful amid a growing environment of hostility and danger. The night fell over Babylon like a velvet curtain speckled with stars. The grand hall of the palace was filled with lights and laughter, echoing with the joyful music and the sound of glasses clinking. King Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, had organized a grand banquet, an event meant to display his power and wealth to 1,000 of his nobles and concubines. The wine flowed freely, and with it irreverence. In his arrogance and desire to showcase his dominance, Belshazzar commanded that the golden and silver vessels, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, be brought out. These sacred objects, intended for the worship of the God of Israel, were profaned as the king and his guests drank wine from them, praising the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. At the height of the celebration, something unexpected and terrifying happened. A human hand, disembodied, appeared and began writing on the wall of the hall beside the lampstand. The hall fell into a chilling silence, the laughter and music stopping instantly. Belshazzar, pale as death, trembled as he stared at the mysterious words, Min, Tekel, Parsin. None of the king's wise men, magicians, or astrologers could interpret the meaning of the words. Unease spread among the guests, and fear took hold of Belshazzar's heart. It was then that the Queen Mother, remembering Daniel's past deeds, entered the hall and suggested that the king summon the man known to have the spirit of the holy gods. O king, the Most High God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty, greatness, glory, and splendor. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was deposed from his royal throne and stripped of his glory. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys, ate grass like the ox, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until he acknowledged that the Most High God is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and sets over them anyone he wishes. Daniel looked directly into Belshazzar's eyes, his gaze penetrating. But you, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, even though you knew all this. Instead, you have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the vessels from his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines drank wine from them. You praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. But you did not honor the God who holds in his hand your life and all your ways. Then Daniel pointed to the writing on the wall. This is the inscription that was written: Tekel, Parsin. This is what these words mean, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Parsin, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Daniel's words reverberated throughout the great hall, and Belshazzar's fate was sealed. But as the palace descended into confusion and fear, the Persian forces, led by Cyrus, were already at the gates of the city, ready to invade and conquer Babylon. Daniel, with his unwavering wisdom and faithfulness, would soon find himself under the rule of a new empire. The challenges and trials that would come with the rise of the Persians would test Daniel's faith and determination even further. Amid political shifts and palace intrigues, Daniel would continue to stand out as a beacon of integrity and devotion, facing new dangers and revealing the power of the God he served. The towering spires of Babylon were now under a new banner. Cyrus, the great leader of the Medes and Persians, had conquered the city with little bloodshed, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the empire's history. Amid the whirlwind of changes, Daniel, the wise Hebrew, found himself once again at the center of power. Cyrus, impressed by Daniel's reputation, kept him in high esteem, recognizing in him a man of wisdom and integrity. The new government brought with it new administrative structures, and under the reign of Darius, one of the governors appointed by Cyrus, Daniel was promoted to one of the 3 high officials overseeing the satraps of the kingdom. His competence and loyalty quickly set him apart, and Darius planned to place him over the entire kingdom. However, Daniel's rise was not welcomed by all. The other satraps and high officials, consumed by envy and resentment, began conspiring against him. They knew that Daniel was blameless in his work. There were no flaws in his administration that they could exploit. So they decided to attack his faith, the most visible and unwavering aspect of his life. The conspirators approached King Darius with a cunning plan. They persuaded him to issue a decree that forbade anyone from petitioning any god or man except the king himself for 30 days. The penalty for violating the decree was being thrown into the lion's den. Flattered by the idea of consolidating his authority, Darius signed the decree, making it irrevocable according to the law of the Medes and Persians. Daniel, upon hearing of the decree, did not hesitate. As was his custom, he went to his room, where the windows opened toward Jerusalem, and there, 3 times a day, he knelt and prayed, giving thanks to his God. The conspirators, knowing of Daniel's devotion, spied on him and caught him in the act. They quickly ran to denounce his transgression to King Darius. Upon hearing the accusation, the king was distressed. The night dragged on slowly, but Daniel's faith remained firm. At the break of dawn, Darius hurried to the lion's den. With a trembling voice, he called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel's clear and strong response filled the king's heart with relief and joy. "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me." Daniel was lifted from the den without a scratch, and his accusers were thrown in their place, where the hungry lions devoured them before they even hit the ground. Darius, amazed by the power of Daniel's God, issued a new decree proclaiming that all in the kingdom must fear and revere the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and his kingdom will never be destroyed. But even with this great demonstration of faith and power, Daniel's days of peace were not guaranteed. In the vast and complex Persian Empire, new intrigues and challenges were always lurking, and Daniel's unshakable faith would be tested once again. The kingdom of shadows was moving, and the visions of a distant future began to haunt the prophet's dreams, revealing secrets that would change the course of history forever. Let me know if you would like me to continue from here.